Hi, my name is Emily. I am so excited to tell you about my Christmas at Grandma's house. Christmas is my favorite time of year, and Grandma's house is the best place to celebrate. Her house is small, but full of warmth, love, and delicious smells. Let me take you there. It all began on Christmas Eve. My family packed the car with lots of gifts, food, and warm clothes. My little brother Ben was jumping up and down with excitement. He kept asking, "Are we going yet? Are we going yet?" Mom smiled and said, "Yes, Ben, just be patient." The drive to Grandma's house was long but beautiful. Snow covered the ground like a big white blanket. We passed tall trees with branches full of snow and little houses with colorful lights. Ben pointed out of the window and shouted, "Look, Emily, there's a snowman." I laughed and said, "That's a very big snowman, Ben." After 2 hours, we finally arrived at Grandma's house. Her house is cozy and charming. It has a big red door and lights hanging around the windows. A wreath with red ribbons was on the door, making it look so festive. Grandma opened the door before we even knocked. She was wearing a green sweater with a Christmas tree design. Her face lit up when she saw us. She said, "Welcome, my dears. Merry Christmas." We all hugged her tightly. Grandma gives the best hugs, warm and comforting, just like her home. When I stepped inside, the first thing I noticed was the smell. Do you know what it smelled like? Cookies! Grandma had been baking gingerbread cookies and chocolate chip cookies. She said, "Take your coats off and come to the kitchen. I made your favorite cookies." Ben ran to the kitchen and grabbed a cookie right away. This is so good," he said with his mouth full. I laughed because he had chocolate crumbs all over his face. Grandma handed me a gingerbread cookie shaped like a star. I took a bite and said, "This is the best cookie ever, Grandma." The oven cracked. After eating cookies, we brought our bags inside. The living room was already decorated with garlands, lights, and stockings. There was even a fireplace with a warm fire crackling inside. Grandma said, "The tree is ready to decorate. We'll do that after dinner." Dinner was simple but delicious. Grandma made soup, fresh bread, and a big salad. She said, "We'll save the big feast for tomorrow." After dinner, we sat together and talked about our plans for Christmas Day. Ben couldn't stop talking about opening presents. Grandma smiled and said, "You'll just have to wait until morning, Ben." By the end of the evening, we were all tired but happy. The best part was knowing that this was just the beginning of our Christmas adventure. After a cozy dinner at Grandma's house, it was time for my favorite tradition, decorating the Christmas tree. Grandma's tree was already set up in the corner of the living room. It was tall, green, and smelled like a fresh forest. The only thing missing was the decorations. Grandma brought out a big box filled with ornaments. She said, "These ornaments are very special. Some of them are older than me." I couldn't believe it. Inside the box, there were shiny glass balls, wooden stars, tiny angels, and even a little snowman made of cotton. Each ornament had a story, and Grandma loved telling us all about them. She held up a golden bell and said, "This belonged to my mother. She used to hang it on the tree every year." Then she showed us a tiny red sled. "Your dad made this when he was a boy," she said with a big smile. It was amazing to think about how these decorations had been part of so many Christmases. Ben was the first to grab an ornament. It was a shiny red ball, and he carefully hung it on one of the lower branches. He stepped back and said, "Look, It's perfect." I picked out a golden star and placed it near the top of the tree. Grandma said, "Good job, Emily. You have an eye for decoration." As we decorated, we laughed and shared stories. Grandpa told us about a Christmas when the tree fell over because her cat tried to climb it. Ben thought that was the funniest story ever. He laughed so hard that he accidentally knocked an ornament off the table. It fell to the floor and broke into pieces. Ben looked sad and said, "I'm sorry, Grandma." But Grandma just smiled and said, "It's okay, Ben. Accidents happen. We can fix it later with some glue." She gave him a big hug, and he felt much better. When all the ornaments were on the tree, Grandma turned on the lights. The lights twinkled like tiny stars, making the tree look magical. We all clapped and said, "Wow!" Grandma stood back and said, "This is the most beautiful tree we've ever had." After the tree was finished, we decided to sing some Christmas carols. Grandma started with Jingle Bells, and we all joined in. As we worked on the tree, we heard one of the songs, and we all joined in. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Even Ben sang along, although he made up some of his own words. We couldn't stop laughing. Then, Grandma sang a song in her soft, sweet voice. It was a quiet moment, and the room felt warm and full of love. That night, as I looked at the tree, I felt so happy. It wasn't just the ornaments or the lights. It was the time we spent together. Decorating the tree reminded me that Christmas is about family and love. After we finished decorating the tree and singing Christmas carols, it was time for another special tradition at Grandma's house. She tells the best stories, and Christmas Eve is the perfect time to sit by the fire and listen. We all gathered in the living room. The fire in the fireplace crackled softly, and the room felt warm and cozy. Grandma brought out a big, soft blanket and draped it over Ben and me as we sat on the couch. She sat in her favorite chair and said, "Are you ready for a story?" Ben and I nodded excitedly. Grandma began, "This is the story of a little girl who saved Christmas." Her voice was calm and soothing, and I could imagine every detail as she spoke. The story was about a girl named Clara who lived in a small village covered in snow. One Christmas Eve, Santa Claus had a problem. His sleigh was stuck in the snow, and he couldn't deliver presents. Clara saw Santa and decided to help. She gathered all her friends, and together they shoveled the snow and freed the sleigh. Santa was so grateful that he gave Clara a special gift, a golden star that she could hang on her tree every Christmas. By the time Grandma finished the story, Ben was smiling from ear to ear. He said, "I wish I could meet Santa and help him like Clara did." Grandma laughed and said, "Well, if you're kind and helpful, you might just see some Christmas magic." After the story, Grandma brought out a plate of warm cookies and cups of hot chocolate. She said, "This is the perfect treat before bed." The cookies were delicious, and the hot chocolate was sweet and creamy. Ben held his cup with both hands and said, "This is the best Christmas Eve ever." Before we went to bed, we did one more special thing. Grandma handed us each a small bell. She said, "These are Christmas bells. When you ring them, make a wish for someone you love." I closed my eyes and rang the bell softly. My wish was for Grandma to always be happy and healthy. Ben rang his bell and said, "I wished for a new toy car, but I also wished for Grandma to get a big hug." Grandma smiled and gave him the biggest hug ever. Finally, it was time to go to bed. Grandma showed us to our rooms. My room had a soft bed with a quilt that Grandma had made herself. She tucked me in and said, "Good night, Emily. Sweet dreams." Snowflakes were falling gently, and the world outside looked peaceful. I thought about the story of Clara and Santa, and about how wonderful it was to spend Christmas with family. My heart felt full, and I couldn't wait for Christmas morning. I woke up early on Christmas morning. The sun was just starting to rise, and the snow outside sparkled like tiny diamonds. The house was quiet, except for the soft sound of the fire still crackling in the fireplace. I felt so excited. Christmas morning at Grandma's house was finally here. Ben came running into my room, still in his pajamas. "Emily, wake up! It's Christmas!" he shouted, bouncing up and down. I laughed and said, Okay, I'm up." Together we ran downstairs to see what surprises were waiting for us. The living room looked magical. The Christmas tree sparkled with its lights, and underneath it there were beautifully wrapped presents of all shapes and sizes. Grandma was already in the kitchen making breakfast. She greeted us with a cheerful, "Good morning, my dears. Merry Christmas." Before we opened the presents, we had a special tradition. Grandma always made a delicious Christmas breakfast. She served fluffy pancakes with syrup, scrambled eggs, and fresh orange juice. Ben ate his pancakes so fast that Grandma said, "Slow down, Ben, or you'll miss the taste." We all laughed, and even Ben giggled with his mouth full of syrup. After breakfast, it was time to open the presents. Ben was the first to dive under the tree. He picked up a big box with his name on it and tore off the wrapping paper. Inside was a bright red toy car. "Wow! It's exactly what I wanted," he shouted. He started pushing the car around the floor, making engine noises. Grandma handed me a gift next. It was a small, neatly wrapped box with a gold ribbon. I carefully unwrapped it and found a beautiful book inside. The cover was red with golden letters that said, "Christmas Stories for Young Readers." I smiled and said, "Thank you, Grandma. This is perfect. I love reading." Grandma gave me a warm hug and said, "I knew you would love it." Grandma also had a present from us. It was a soft woolen scarf that Mom and I had picked out together. When she opened it, her eyes lit up. "Oh, it's so lovely. Thank you, my dears," she said, wrapping it around her neck. After all the presents were opened, we spent the rest of the morning playing and talking. Ben built a little racetrack for his car, and I started reading the first story in my new book. Grandma sat by the fireplace knitting a new blanket. In the afternoon, we had the big Christmas feast. Grandma had prepared everything: roast turkey, mashed potatoes, green beans, and cranberry sauce. For dessert, there was a huge chocolate cake. We all sat around the table, laughing and enjoying the food. Ben said, "This is the best meal ever," and I couldn't agree more. As the day came to an end, Grandma gathered us all together. She said, "Remember, Christmas is not just about the presents. It's about the love and memories we share." Her words stayed in my heart. That Christmas at Grandma's house was the best I ever had. It wasn't just the gifts or the food. It was the time spent together that made it so special. Thank you for spending time with me and listening to this story about Christmas at Grandma's house. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more fun and easy stories to help you learn English, Please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell me about your favorite holiday memory. See you in the next story.